Avlon, and we're going to be talking about scalps and getting to the root of healthy hair. Welcome, Jacqui.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
So let's get down to it. Um, what does a healthy scalp look like in general? Obviously, we are going to be talking about textured hair because Avlon's new AffirmCare Dandruff collection is tailored for clients with textured hair. But let's speak a little bit generally about scalps because I know, a scalp is scalp.
Scalp. I think the first and foremost thing, a healthy scalp is a scalp that really, when you're looking at it, the coloration of the scalp is even from the frontal hairline to the nape. Sometimes there is, depending on different ethnicities, certain discolorations, but it's that even look along the scalp. There's no debris to the scalp, there's no scarations, there's no inflammation to the scalp. All of those key factors would identify if there's something actually wrong with the scalp. So when you're checking a scalp, it's really just making sure that the scalp coloration is even throughout the whole of the scalp. And that, sometimes when you read a book, it says, it's a pale pinky color. Well, if you're talking with somebody from my ethnicity, my scalp's not going to be pale or pink. It's going to have a more of like a dull kind of beigey kind of image to it. So for me, I always say to stylists, look for the even colorization of that scalp, regardless of what tone you see. Just make sure that that tone's even throughout the whole of the scalp, and there's no scarring, there's no signs of inflammation, there's no signs of congestion on the scalp, anything like that. And that will identify whether the scalp is healthy or not. I think one of the biggest aspects of hairdressing is I think sometimes when we're looking at hair, we do focus on the hair and not look at the scalp. And I think it's really exciting now that people are paying a hell of a lot more attention because we understand that the scalp is the hub, that, if that's not healthy, then everything else you do is secondary and you really are not going to make no progress. And there's always this conflict about, well, the hair's dead above the scalp, so why are we bothered with it? And I think the answer to that is yes, it is keratinized and it is dead fiber. But what we do in terms with the hair is we're managing that fiber and we're putting emollients on that fiber so that we are able to manipulate it. But when we're talking about the scalp, we're actually feeding at a follicular level and we're ensuring that what nutrients we have within our shampoos and our conditioners are able to penetrate.
It's so good to see this turning tide where scalp care has become like skincare. People are understanding that they need to cleanse, gently exfoliate where they need to. You might disagree with me on that, but we can get into the details of that. Um, add in nutrients and moisture and nourishing. So I really wanted to ask actually about the differences between dandruff and dry skin and how sometimes they can be mistaken, and perhaps how the Affirm Care, obviously it's got dandruff in the name. Is it specifically for dandruff, and how can you recognize if your client has dandruff specifically?
Great question. Let's hope I don't fall in the answer. It's taking me back now. Dandruff really is a very broad terminology for different scalp conditions because, there are so many different related types of dandruff. So first and foremost, I would identify as common dandruff, where you're seeing small white flakes on the scalp. And that's basically where, the skin of the scalp has slowed down and is starting to flake and shed. Then you have what we call seborrheic dandruff, which is a greasy dandruff and tends to have a yellow tinge to it and sometimes can have a smell. And normally, if it does, it's because it's become contaminated because obviously that person's either been scratching and the bacteria from your fingernails and all of that can then cause folliculitis, which then is a bacterial aspect of that dandruff also. But then we can have what we call a yeast fungus that sits dormant on the scalp. And that can be a form of dandruff and that can turn into a fungus of the scalp as well. So, dependent on what is being presented to you, you really have to then identify what route you go in terms of cleansing. The beauty with the Affirm Care, because tests that have been done through the labs have understand the different types of bacteria that sit dormant on the scalp, the functional ingredients within the range are there to combat whatever is presented through the scalp. So whether your dandruff is caused by psoriasis or eczema or seborrheic dandruff, or whether it's seborrheic dermatitis, the functional ingredients within the range will help combat that just because of the stages of cleansing that you're going to go through. So for instance, within the shampoo, you're going to have your moisturizing aspects. Within your conditioners, especially the mask, you're going to have your exfoliants, and then you're going to have your flake controls as well. So there are key ingredients within the range that help to really attach to anything that's presented on the scalp.
Amazing. That sounds great. So it really is a full healthy scalp routine, even if, your clients are presenting with different types of dandruff, this can really help cover all bases.
The beauty about the range as well, because obviously we know that we're starting with hair that is more type 4 hair that will require more moisture. So you're starting at that end of the spectrum. So in terms of hydration, in terms of moisturization, there are key aspects within the range that are going to support that. But even if you're going to between your 2 and 3, and even in some cases type 1 hair, the way in which you would apply the product, the way in which you would use the mask and the conditions will still help to combat those conditions to the scalp. So for instance, if I was working on a client like yourself that had that condition, say you had a greasy dandruff, I wouldn't necessarily use the shampoo on you first. I'd probably go in with the mask and use the walnut powder that's in there to help exfoliate what's on the scalp and then shampoo out after. So it's just a way of using the products in different ways to achieve the outcome that you want.
Amazing. The walnut powder sounds great. And what a lovely thing to talk to your clients about rather than really harsh chemicals. It because you think chemical exfoliants and they go, oh, but my scalp is actually feeling pretty inflamed. It might be itchy, a bit sensitive. But you can talk about these ingredients that, everyone knows what a walnut is, and it
I
sounds
mean, the beauty
natural and
about the range is, sorry to talk over you, the beauty about the range is it's just that we already know that when you're working with scalps that are sitting in that textured hair, especially at the tighter curl patterns, the scalp itself is naturally going to be drier. So therefore, if you have a dandruff condition, the irritation level on that is going to be slightly higher than those that may have a more greasy scalp. So it's really about, removing the scalp, but also moisturizing and keeping that pH of the scalp in a positive acid mantle. So we're not stripping the hair, we're not making the scalp feel tight in any way. The beauty about the AffirmCare range is it's 100% vegan friendly. So for your customers that really are conscious about the ingredients that they're using in their hair just through their own personal lifestyle, it's a range that you can make them feel at comfort at because everything in there is natural and it is 100% vegan free, and all of the ingredients are natural functional ingredients. So they all serve a purpose, as I've just said, to alleviate the problem of the scalp. And again, it's just down through your analysis how you would utilize those products to get the best outcome.
Wow. So we've touched on one point of difference between the scalp of a client who has textured hair, and are there any others? Like we chatted briefly about protective hairstyles before we started the live. What kind of impact might the way someone wears their hair have on their scalp condition?
I think normally, if you do have a scalp condition, then the cleansing and well-being of the scalp is very important because depending on how frequently your scales appear, you've got to keep the scalp clean and you've got to keep the scalp. It's striking that balance, especially at type 4, of keeping the scalp clean, but also keeping it hydrated and moisturized. So frequency of shampooing is important. And again, because the ingredients within the AffirmCare line are so gentle, you're not going to disturb the acid mantle of the cup. So that frequency of shampooing is taken into consideration. Now, in terms of protective styling, yes, you can have protective styling, but to me, if you've got a scalp condition, the type of style that you choose has to allow you to be able to get to the scalp and also for the scalp to have air flowing through it, because the biggest trap for scalp disorders is low humidity. So, if you're in damp conditions, or if the scalp is packed in such a way that natural airflow can't flow through from the roots to the tip, then you're actually causing an incubator for bacteria to breathe. So it's really important that your choice of protective style lends itself to your scalp condition.
That's so interesting about the low humidity, and I'd never, yeah, I never considered that. That's amazing. Um, what else makes AffirmCare innovative to the market? I feel like we've touched on so much. Maybe is there like a start to finish? Like how many products are there in the range? We can talk about how there's different solutions for the
So
whole.
you have within the AffirmCare Dandruff collection, you have your cleanser, which is your shampoo. You have your conditioner, which you would use after your shampoo. You've got your mask, and then we're waiting for our new launch of the scalp oil. And each of those ingredients will have an element of all of the key factors, ingredients, but they're working in conjunction with what you need at that point. So in terms of cleansing, you're looking at more moisturizing ingredients. So things like your coconut oil, betaine, which is a natural strengthening ingredient. You're looking at things like mango butter, which is a high moisturizer. Those are going to be your key moisturizing components. Flaxseed oil also is going to be part of that. When you're looking at the exfoliation aspect of what you're needing to do, it's your protein olamine, which is very commonly used in dandruff shampoo, but that's really going to be what alleviates your flakes and lifts them off the scalp. But also black seed oil, which again is another natural ingredient to reduce flakes and keep them at bay. But also within that, you've got walnut powder, and that's really important to touch on. And I know we've just mentioned it, but sometimes a lot of the exfoliants that people are using are quite aggressive on the scalp, and the scalp tissues are very thin and very fine. And if you work too aggressively on that, you can cause much damage. And even like sometimes you see people using scalp brushes and massages on the scalp, and they're putting quite a lot of pressure, and that can actually cause more problems, especially when you've got dandruff conditions of the scalp. So it's striking that balance between being able to exfoliate the scalp correctly, but without tearing the skin of the scalp. And that's something that, needs to really be considered. And even when we're advising clients when they're shampooing at home, I've seen people use nail brushes to lift scales off of their scalp. And you just think, you're actually tearing the skin. So I understand you want to get rid of the flakes, but, they're let the ingredients do their job. So something like a walnut powder is going to gently lift those flakes off the scalp. And sometimes, I think we've got into this habit where we want things to happen straight away. Depending on the amount of buildup, you may have to cleanse more than once to get the scalp clean enough to be ready for exfoliation. So it's just really paying attention to the process of what you're doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it does seem like there's a real parallel there between skincare and scalp care, because you would never put like a nail brush or like a buffing brush onto your face. Like it's just,
Exactly.
it makes you go, "Ugh." And so I think we all, as hairdressers and educators, need to, yeah, keep that in mind.
And it's thinking about what each ingredient is going to do. So, for instance, you're going to have scalps that are itchy. You're going to have scalps that are inflamed. Not everybody that has scalp disorders have itchy scalps. You'll find the dry scalps tend to have itchy, but it's not exclusive to that. So, ingredients like your mint, aloe vera, they're all soothing ingredients. So, again, they're going to help bring down that inflammation of the scalp, because one of the biggest intruders to scalp disorders is the fact that we scratch, because it's just what we do. If your scalp's irritated, you're just going to scratch. So things like green tea, things like aloe vera, things like mint are amazing anti-inflammatories that are going to help just bring that inflammation down. And then you want to have things in there, like I said, that are going to keep the flakes at bay. So natural oregano is a key factor for that. And also things like your black seed oil, again, are just going to help maintain and keep that at bay. One of the key things that has to be put across to clients that do suffer from these kind of conditions is when you're using these kinds of products, you have to use them consistently. You can't just use once and then that's it, because these conditions don't go away. Excuse me. And what these products do is just keep them at bay and maintain the equilibrium of the hair and the scalp. So it's a commitment for the client and, obviously for the stylist to ensure that they're maintaining that.
That's amazing. That's really good to pass on to clients, that it's not a one use thing. It's not
No.
like quick service. It's like you will need to use this. I mean, I guess you could probably interchange the wash cycle, so a dandruff collection once and then something else in between, or would you really advise to keep going with this because
I,
it's got everything that you need in it for healthy hair as well as scalp?
I think for the AffirmCare range, you would not necessarily need to intermix because you've got all the ingredients in there that are going to give you what you need for the hair. So in terms of, like I said, moisturization, in terms of strengthening, I mean, key ingredients in terms of strengthening, we've got things like ceramides in there, we've got copper tripeptide in there, which are real, to be able to put that in hair care now and in the development in which we've done because of the nanotechnology that we use, that submicron technology that sits within the AffirmCare range takes those ingredients to the follicular level. So they're not just sitting on the surface of the skin, they're actually going down into the bulb of the hair and helping with that regeneration of that active growth within the hair and ensuring that nourishment sits there. So when you're using AffirmCare, you're using a range that really is functionally supporting your hair growth, but at the same time, alleviating the flakes that sit on the scalp.
Amazing. So it really is from root to tip
From root
care.
to tip. From root to tip.
360.
And it's just, it's just sitting with that science of hair care. It's just looking at, what is going to stimulate and what is going to manipulate growth, what is going to help alleviate the flakes on the hair, what is also going to function as a conditioner that, because we're still going to maintain the hair after, we're still going to blow dry, we're still going to do a protective style. So how are you leaving that hair after that conditioning process? So like I said, that list of ingredients and the percentages of which they're sitting in across the range is going to give you that confidence to know that once you finish your cleansing process, that hair is ready to receive your styling aids in whichever route you choose to go down.
Oh, well, that has cleared up a lot of questions that I had personally as I got dandruff over here. So I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. I need to get my hands on a firm care ASAP.
I'm enjoying it. And again, just to add as a tip, I put it in there in terms of, especially with tightly curled hair, one of the biggest factors. And if you think, if you've got a dandruff condition where your scalp is sore, the hair is sore, your hair tangles very quickly, you need a conditioner that's going to give you that ease of combing. And with the AffirmCare range, you can detangle that hair and know it gives you something like 27% of that ease of detangling, which again is phenomenal. And in terms of moisturization, the moisturization of the hair is improved by 21%. So you know that you're giving your clients something that they're going to feel the difference in their hair straight away.
Thank you so much. So much knowledge, so much stats, there's so many ingredients. Congratulations for
Science of hair
remembering
care, baby. That's the will that we have. It's all
everything.
about the science of hair care. And, and I think with Avlon, that's just the
Yeah.
thing. I just don't think, it's not about it's really about how the products align with the hair and what the hair is going through, and it's using that science to ensure that we are replenishing or combating anything that we're putting the hair through. So whatever that process is, that people say, oh, frequency of shampoo can dry the hair out, and yes, you're right. If you're using a shampoo that hasn't got those additional ingredients, you will dry the hair out. Because we know what these conditions are going to cause, you have to really like circumvent what that outcome's going to be. You're going to have a client that may need to shampoo 2 to 3 times a week. So you've got to ensure you've got the right moisturization levels to combat that dryness that could occur if those ingredients weren't in there. In terms of strengthening, that hair is fragile. The scalp may be infected. So again, you've got to have those ingredients in there to combat those issues. So for me as a hairstylist, I just think it gives you that confidence to know that you're using a product that is going to, one, leave your client's scalp healthy, it's going to give you what you need for the hair, but also it's going to allow in between shampoos for that scalp area to be nourished and for any inflammation that's on the scalp to be reduced, which is an important factor when you're dealing with dandruff.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jacqui, for your time this morning. I really appreciate it. So much knowledge. Um, Thank you, and do this again sometime, hopefully. See you soon.
See you soon. Take great care and thank you so
Bye.
much for having
Thank
us.
you so much
See
to
you soon.
Avlon as well. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.